Hello and welcome to this video, guys. Today we're going to add Angular material to the project, and we're going to test out a couple of components within Angular material, and we're going to demonstrate how they can be utilized, what you need to do in order to use them, and so on. So in order for us to start, we need to do one thing. Given that you already have a project up and running, we can go ahead and write ng add angular/material. So this will install the packages for us. So it will check for a compatible package version. So it finds 15.2.5 in this case. Will be installed. Would you like to proceed? Yes, proceed. Alright, so let's give it a couple of seconds and we'll be right back. Alright, so you need to select the theme you want, and you also want to say yes, set up global Angular typography, include an enabled animation so that you can have the different animations that comes with the Angular material. And once this is done, it should automatically do a couple of changes. In the app module, it's going to complete a couple of changes here. It's going to add the browser animation module for us and make some changes to Angular JSON by adding the styles here. So it adds the style file for indigo pink in this case, which I picked. In the HTML file, it does a couple of things. It adds, for instance, the body class here. Yeah, and in style CSS, it just adds some global styles for Angular material. So if we go back to our app component file, now I have a header in this case, which we now just can look away from. We can just comment it out for now. So once this is done, we can start utilizing the Angular material components. If I just add an h1 hello world, you'll be able to see a couple of things. It has added Roboto and so on, set it to our default typography and so on. So what we can do now is we're going to add a component. In this case, we're going to add the cart component. So in order for us to do this, I would recommend that we essentially open the documentation for this, so Angular material. So we'd go to the Angular material page, get started, or you can just go to components in this case. In this case, you can select here in the left side, we have the components which you can select amongst. You have the card component, usually go straight into the view code and just copy this code here. And as you can see here, we have some issues, which is essentially because we haven't imported the cart module from Angular material, meaning we cannot use it until we have already added dependencies for it. So in order for us to know from where, we can click on API, and this gives us the reference, this component. So let's go back to the app module. Here we'll go ahead and add the cart module here into the imports. We will import it, place it under the imports and save. So once this is done, we should be able to utilize the cart component. So here's the cart component from material cards. So we can check out a couple of different, there are essentially a couple of different examples that you can look into, and we can, for instance, you have one with the preloader, you have some with images and so on, and we can just be a bit trickier and just copy everything that they have in their example code. So saving here, we have some logic, and as you can see here, it does not look really good, so we need to look into that. So in order for us to go ahead with this, we need to essentially restart our project, because if we have added the project afterwards and it has changed the Angular JSON file, we need to restart. So let's not get tricked by it. So after restarting, the design should look as it's supposed to do. The reason to why we don't see any CSS being applied is because these styles here that's being added when we install the package requires us to actually restart the project. Alright, once that is done, we can just reload our page here, and we should see that it's a shadow that has been added by the Angular material team. So continuing, you can see here we're trying to apply a directive which we do not have. It's the mat button, and in order for us to actually use it, we need to import the button module as well from let's say mat button module, and it needs to be reshaped as well, and it comes from angular/material/button. All right, saving this, we should have buttons looking much prettier than they are doing, and as you can see here, we have some logic that's quite similar to how it was looking in their documentation. All right, so to continue, we're essentially going to set some CSS here, and we're going to say that the mat card has a max width of 20% of the screen, for instance. We can just give it a CSS like this. All right, so this is one way of actually using one of their components. It does not look good at all. As you can see, it looks quite crazy because of the stylings that we have applied. But imagine now you have cards being applied in this way. You can have multiple cards next to each other. You could just reusing all of these different kind of components that they have. So the bottom line is when you want to try it out on your component, you can just find the component you like. You can copy the code here. So in this case, it's a chip list box that we have here. We can essentially go ahead and copy it and so on. And this is a list box. It's when essentially can toggle different variants. But if we go to a regular chip, we should be able to, let's see if we find one in the examples here. Here we have a drag and drop chip, so you can essentially drag them around, but that's not what we want. We want a basic chip. So a basic chip here. All right, so we can essentially just copy the chip here from here. And copying this, placing them here, let's see, we can place the chips here just for now. And in a similar manner, we need to go here and copy the math chips module in order for us to use it. And we need to add it to the imports. The reason to why we need to import one by one is because we do not want to import a whole library if we're only going to utilize one or two components. So this becomes much more performant, which is the more attractive way of actually doing it. So if I just paste it here, you see that we have the exact same code that we had in here. So this is one way of actually starting to utilize the components and just use your imagination on what you can start doing with this. For instance, if this would be a blog post, let's just remove the image in the header so that we only have it like this. So let's say we would have a blog where we essentially want to present articles in this way. We could go ahead and just for now, let's go to the app.ts file and we're going to add, say, my array, and we're going to just create a new array with 10 items and we're going to fill it with just the number 1. The reason to why we do this is because we want to add an ng4 here just for simulating how it would look like. So ng4 let I of my array. It does not really matter what the content is, we just want to print 10 of them or essentially maybe even 12 of them so that we have a specific number. So having 12 of them in one line does not make sense. So let's go ahead and add some CSS. We want is first and foremost, we're going to add a wrapper. So it's a class card wrapper. And let's wrap the card wrapper here. We're just snatch the CSS for now, and we're going to wrap it like this. And we're going to say display flex, so it will flex all of the items. Now they will all be placed in the same line, which does not make sense. So we'll go ahead and say flex wrap. So in case it takes up more than 100%, it will be thrown to another row. And obviously here we should have calc, let's say 100% divided by 3, so that we have 100% width. All right, so this is one way of actually working with Angular material. You can continue by adding maybe margin bottom by 24 pixels to get it to look better. We can add some, because the boxes are white, it might be trivial that we add a background color, which is not similar to what we have now. So in this case, it could be background gray and the cards will immediately pop out a bit from the screen. So we can also say that we want to have a flex gap, a gap of 32 pixels. We can go ahead and remove the margin bottom. It's not needed anymore. And so let's add a max width there, and we remove 24 pixels. We add the justify content space between, and we can see that they're being flexed in this way. So this looks much better than it did before. So zooming in and zooming out, we do not have any responsivity. What we could do is just add a media query. So max width 1000 pixels, we could just force it down to 2 squares in this case. So if we would zoom in, it should jump to 2 and so on. And here we should probably be able to decrease the amount of spacing this way. So, and we can also say that when we hit a certain breakpoint, maybe it's a mobile device, 680px, we want to make sure that we are having 100% of the screen. All right, so saving this and zooming in, you see that it jumps into 100%, and this, my friend, is how you can utilize material cards with some buttons here. Thank you for watching. All of the best. Bye.